In this video, we are going to be practicing order of operations, also known as PEMDAS, which is one of my favorite things in math, so I'm really excited about this video. First, we're going to talk about the order that we follow, how we solve all problems anytime in math. It could be problems specifically where you're focusing on order of operations, or it could be really any other time in math. This is the order that every single person in the entire world follows. First come parentheses, then come exponents, then multiply and divide, and then add and subtract. So if we take the first letters of each of these words, it spells out PEMDAS. A quick note I want to make, you might notice that I wrote the M and the D and the A and the S on the same lines. The reason why is because each of these, the parentheses and the exponents, we do on their own in one step. But multiply and divide, that comes at the same time. So in a problem, first you're going to do the parentheses, then you'll do the exponents, and then at the same time you're going to do multiplying and dividing. You'll start at the left of the problem and move right. And anytime you see either multiply or divide, you will solve. It doesn't matter which one comes first, you move from left to right. Then after that, you add and subtract. Once again, moving from left to right. So you start on the left of the problem, moving right, solving whatever you see first. It doesn't matter if it's subtract first, add first, whatever it is, moving from left to right, that's the order that you solve in. So PEMDAS is an easy way to help us remember the order of operations, but just be sure you remember this multiply and divide come in one step and add and subtract come on their own step at the end. In the next part of the video, I'm going to show you some example problems. I would highly encourage that as I walk through these problems, you write these problems down on a piece of paper yourself and write down every single step with me, because then at the end of the video, you'll need to do some on your own. So it'd be a good idea to practice these ones I show you with me. So here's an example problem that we can look at. I wrote the order of operations PEMDAS over here as a reference just to keep it handy. I would recommend that when you're solving problems with order of operations, you write it off to the side, just so you can keep it in your mind of what comes first and then the steps that follow. So here's an example problem. I'm going to look and see what I have. I see I have a subtract, divide, multiply, and an add. So I need to follow the order of operations going one step at a time. So first I'm going to see, do I have parentheses? Nope. Do I have exponents? No, I don't. Do I have multiply and or divide? Yes, I have a divide and I have a multiply. So remember, I write these on the same line because I just moved from left to right. So I'm going to start on the left, in the very far left, and move to the right. And anytime I see a multiply or a divide, I'm going to solve that. So no, 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 no. Yes, I have a divide. So I do this first. Even though the D comes after the M in the little PEMDAS word, I move from left to right, go at the same step, multiply and divide. So the furthest left is this divide. I'm going to do this first. So I'm going to do 16 divided by 4. 16 divided by 4 is 4. I'm only going to do one thing at a time. In order of operations, if you try to do multiple steps at the same time, I promise it's only going to confuse you. Do not do anything in your head. Do one step at a time and write it down every single time, every single step, and I really, really promise with my entire life, it's going to be a lot easier for you and you're a lot less likely to make a mistake. So I do my one step, 16 divided by 4. I can change that to a 4. Now I'm going to write everything else the same. So 30 minus, and instead of 16 divided by 4, I change that to 4, times 2 plus 5. So I only change one thing at a time. Now I'm going to keep following the order of operations to see what I can do next. So let's see if I have any more multiply and divide. Subtract, yes, I have a multiply. So I do this one next, 4 times 2. Well, 4 times 2, I can change that to an 8. Now I only do one step at a time, so I keep everything else the same. 30 minus, then instead of 4 times 2, I change that to an 8, then plus 5. So now I'm left with 30 minus 8 plus 5. So I look to see, do I have any more multiply and divide? Nope, just subtracting and adding. So I'm on my last step, add and subtract. This is the same as multiply and divide. I move from left to right. Whatever I see first is the one that I solve. So moving from the left, I have a subtract. So I do this one first. 30 minus 8. If I do my subtraction, which I can do off to the side if I can't do it in my head quickly, 10 minus 8 is 2. 2 minus nothing, 2. So 30 minus 8, I can change that to 22. Now I keep everything else the same. I'm left with plus 5. So 22 plus 5. So I continue on adding and subtracting. All right, all I have left is 22 plus 5, which gets me 27 as my answer, 27. So every time I did each step, remember I wrote down every single step only one at a time. And every time I referred back to here, okay, what do I do next? Okay, that moving just one step at a time. And in the end, I end up with one simple problem that isn't too tricky for me to solve. I promise order of operations really is not super tricky as long as you take your time. It's when you try to rush, when you try to do it in your head, that's when the mistakes happen. Even though it seems like a lot more work to write it out one step at a time, I promise your success rate is going to be much higher. You're more likely to get the correct answer if you write one step at a time. I probably sound like I'm repeating myself over and over, but I have seen so many times students make mistakes because they try to do it in their head. Do one step at a time, every time. Look back, check, all right, what do I do next? All right, do that one step, what do I do next? And then you'll be more likely to get the answer correct. All right, here's another problem that we are going to solve, and we're going to do it the exact same way, going through one step at a time. Once again, because I want to remind myself every single time what's the order of operations, I wrote PEMDAS off to the side here so I can look back at it as I solve the problem to remind myself of the order. So looking at my problem here, I have a times, I have parentheses, I have add, exponents. All right, so I know what I'm going to work with. So starting off with the order of operations, do I have parentheses? Yes. So this is what I'm going to do first, inside the parentheses. So I have 5 plus 2. So I'm going to do this first, in parentheses, the 5 plus 2, which I can change to a 7. When I'm down to one number in the parentheses, I don't need them anymore. So I just change it to a 7. I keep everything else in the problem the same. I only change one thing at a time. So now any more parentheses? Nope. Exponents? Yes. 3 to the power of 2. This is what I'm going to do next, 3 to the power of 2. So whenever I have exponents, off to the side, I always write down what it means, just because, once again, when you try to do things in your head, you're a lot more likely to make mistakes. So 3 to the power of 2 is the same as 3 times 3, which equals 9. So instead of 3 to the power of 2, I can write 9. And everything else I'm going to keep the same. All right, looking back at the order of operations, any more exponents? No. Any multiply or divide? I look at that at the same time, and yes, I have a multiply. So I do the multiply and divide from left to right. I start from the left, I have multiply, so I will do this step next. 4 times 7, which I know is 28. Now I keep everything else the same. Then I look back at my order of operations. Any more multiply and divide? Nope. Any add and subtract? Yep, I have an add. So I'm going to do 28 plus 9, which I know equals 37 would be your answer. This is the last problem that I am going to do with you. After this, I will be giving you some problems for you to try on your own. This problem I tried to make as complicated as possible using pretty much every single step of order of operations. So looking at what we have parentheses, we have adding, we have parentheses inside parentheses, multiply, divide, multiply, exponents. So we've got quite a bit of things here that we'll need to solve. This looks like a long, complicated problem, but I promise you, it won't be that complicated if you just go slow, doing one step at a time. I know I sound like I'm repeating myself a lot, but hopefully you get the idea of how important it is to go one step at a time. So starting off parentheses, do we have parentheses? Yes, we do. Now inside of parentheses, it's really important that you still follow order of operations. So I'm going to do the parentheses first, this section, but inside my parentheses, I still have a few things. I have add, parentheses, subtract, and multiply. So even inside parentheses, I still need to use order of operations. So I'm going to look just inside the parentheses here. Do I have parentheses? Yes, I do. I have these parentheses right here. So this will be the first thing that I solve inside these parentheses. So I will do this first. 5 minus 3 inside these parentheses. 5 minus 3 is 2. Now I keep everything else the same. I change the 5 minus 3 to a 2, but I rewrite everything else. Divided by 3 times 2 to the power of 3. Okay, so I still have parentheses, so I still need to work on what's inside of the parentheses. So I need to, once again, still follow the order of operations inside these parentheses. So looking inside, I have add and I have multiply. What comes first in the order of operations? Multiply comes before adding, so I will do the multiply step first. 2 times 2 will be the next step that I solve. 2 times 2, I know that's 4. Everything else I keep the same. All right, let's go back to our order of operations. Do I have parentheses? Yes, I still have parentheses. So I will do this step, still working on that. But now I'm only left with one problem inside. 10 plus 4, I can change that to 14. When I'm left with one number, I don't need to write the parentheses anymore. I can drop them. So I'm left with just 14, but then remember I need to rewrite everything else the same, only changing one thing at a time. So let's look back. What comes next? Do I have parentheses? Nope, those are all gone. So now I will work on exponents. Do I have exponents? Yes. I have 2 to the power of 3. So off to the side, I write down what 2 to the power of 3 equals. 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. So instead of 2 to the power of 3, I can write down 8. Everything else stays the same. I only change one thing at a time. All right, do I have any more exponents? Nope, those are all gone. How about multiply and divide? Yes, I have divide and multiply, But remember, even though I write the multiply, the M before the D, I write it on the same line because I go from left to right. I start on the left, moving right, solving whatever I see first. If it's a multiply or divide, doesn't matter. I solve whatever comes first, moving left to right. So starting on the left, I notice that I have 14 divided by 7. So I do that step first. It's the first thing, moving from left to right. So 14 divided by 7, I can change that to 2, but I keep everything else the same. So any more multiply and divide? Yes, I'm left with one problem that I can definitely solve. 2 times 8, that equals 16. So 16 is the answer to this problem. Here are now 4 problems for you to try. So what you will need to do is write these 4 problems on a piece of paper and solve them. Remember, please solve only one step at a time. Do not attempt to do anything in your head. Please do not do that. I would also recommend writing PEMDAS on your paper to refer back to it to remind yourself of the steps that you follow every single time you move on from one step to the next. So in a second, you'll need to pause the video and solve these 4 problems. When you think you have your answers, you can play the video again and check your work. So go ahead and pause the video now. All right, these are the 4 answers that you should have gotten. Number 1, the answer is 16. Number 2, the answer is 9. Number 3, the answer is 148. And then number 4, the answer is 2,916. So hopefully you went one step at a time, just like I did here, and then it led you to the correct answer. But if you did happen to get any of these wrong, compare your work to mine. I tried to be really clear with what I was doing each step using colors in every single step. And so see if you maybe forgot to write a step down, maybe you did something in your head and got mixed up. See where you went wrong and see if you can fix your mistake. We are going to talk about one more thing with order of operations, and that is placing parentheses. You may encounter some problems when you're working with order of operations where it gives you something like this, a problem with no parentheses and an answer. So if you were to go through and solve this problem using the correct order of operations, so going through each step, it would not give you this answer. So you're going to need to put parentheses in the problem somewhere to equal this answer. So in order to do that, it really is kind of just a process of guess and check. Guess parentheses in one spot. If that works, great, you're done. If not, guess in another spot. And keep guessing different spots until you get your answer. So what you're going to do is start off with the first pair of 2. See if that gets you your answer. So if I have parentheses here, that means I need to do this step first. So 8 times 4, that's 32. I keep everything else the same. I do add and subtract in the same step. So I move from left to right. So the first that comes up is 32 minus 2. I can change that to 30. Keep everything else the same. 36. Nope, so that did not give me the answer I was looking for. So I know that this is not the correct location for the parentheses. So I'm going to try the next group of 2 now. So I will try putting the parentheses around these 2. So that would be what I do first. 4 minus 2 is 2. I keep everything else the same. So now I'm left with multiply and add. Next comes the multiplying. 8 times 2, that's 16 plus 6, which equals 22. That is our answer. So we know that the parentheses go around 4 minus 2. Now let's take a look at this problem. It's actually the exact same thing. All of this is exactly the same, but now we want our answer to be 64. So I'm going to follow the same process. Check one, then if that doesn't work, check the next group, and check the next group. So I already tried that, and it did not work. It got me 36, so I know that's not correct. I've already tried this. I know that's not the correct answer in this case because it got me 22. Now I'm looking for 64. So now I'll try this group of 2. So that's the one I do first because it's in parentheses. So 2 plus 6, that equals 8. I keep everything else the same. Now I'm left with multiply and subtract. Multiply comes first. So I will do this part next. 8 times 4 is 32 minus 8. 32 minus 8 is 24, which is not what we're looking for. So we know that this is not the correct place of our parentheses. So we will need to guess another place now. So I've already tried all of the possible groups of 2. If I've tried all possible groups of 2 and it still has not given me the correct answer, I need to move on to groups of 3. So let's try this group of 3 first. So remember, inside the parentheses, I still need to follow the order of operations. So I have multiply and subtract. Multiply comes first. So I will do the 8 times 4 section first. That's 32. I still keep my parentheses because I'm not left with one number inside yet. So now I still have parentheses, so I still need to work on that. 32 minus 2 is 30. I keep everything else the same. 30 plus 6 is 36, which is not what we're looking for. So sadly, we still have not found the correct answer yet. So this is not the correct location of our parentheses. Here, I'll just erase this and start over. All right, so if that group of 3 didn't work, I need to try the next group of 3. So inside the parentheses, now I have 4 minus 2 plus 6. So remember, I still follow the order of operations even inside parentheses. So inside the parentheses, I have subtract and I have add. So I do those in the same step, moving from left to right. So I start on the left moving, and the first thing I see is 4 minus 2. So that's what I'm going to do first. 4 minus 2 is 2. I keep everything else the same. So I still have parentheses, so I still need to work on that. 2 plus 6 is 8. I keep everything else the same. Now I'm left with 8 times 8 is 64, which is indeed the answer we are looking for. So we know in this case, this is the spot where right here is the spot where the parentheses go. I want to show you now one more possibility. So if you have tried all groups of 2, all groups of 3, and you're still not getting your answer, then you need to try multiple groups of parentheses. So something like this. One group and another group. Trying 2 groups of parentheses and see if that gets you your answer. So when I have multiple groups of parentheses, just solve the left one first, then do the right one. So I have 8 times 4 in the left parentheses. I can change that to 32. I keep everything else the same. Now I'll solve the right parentheses. 2 plus 6 is 8. Keep everything else the same. 32 minus 8 is 24, which is the answer that we're looking for. So sometimes you may need to use multiple groups of parentheses. So just to recap this, when you are placing parentheses, try groups of 2. If you're still not getting your answer, try groups of 3. And if you're still not getting your answer, try more than one group of parentheses. To end this video, I have given you 2 example problems to try. So you are going to try now on your own placing the parentheses. So here I've given you actually the exact same problem more than once, but this time up here it needs to equal 10, and this one down here needs to equal 7. So you're going to figure out where the parentheses go, try different groups to see which one gets you the correct answer that you're looking for. So you can pause the video and solve, and when you think you have your answers, play it again to check your results. Go ahead and pause the video now. So this is what you should have had. In the first one, the parentheses, we have two groups of parentheses going around 9 minus 7, and another group going around 2 plus 3. In the second one, we just have one set of parentheses, and it goes around 9 minus 7. So if you got either of these wrong, compare your work with mine. I wrote down every single step, like you should have as well, so you can see where exactly you might have gotten off and fix your mistakes. And that is all we are going to do for order of operations practice. I'd say the number one thing to take out of this video is do one step at a time, writing down every single step that you do. I promise that is the most important part of order of operations, and if you do that, your chance of getting the correct answer will be like 1,000,000 times more. I promise you, like 1,000,000 times more. So please do that.